Hello there. I just wanted to create a small video on a module I've been working on. Well, actually two. I have Axios, which is an Ajax library, which I'm just wrapping with, um, so it just conforms better to be used inside an action. And it also has some action factories, so you can more easily get stuff from the server. So Axios will be like you just bring in that module and then you have whatever you need to, or all you need to do normal HTTP requests to the server. Okay, but the other one is called entities. So cerebral module entities. And as you can see, you just bring in that module right here. And the purpose of this module is to help you handle entities from the server. So the thing is that it's not really good to just bring in entities from the server, like users, and in this case, we're bringing in vessels and fleets, and just put them into a state store, because you usually want to reference these things. You only want one instance of a particular user or a particular vessel in this example. And for example, a fleet in this application has multiple vessels and multiple users, and we just want to reference them. We do not want to have duplicates inside our state store. So, and we also have this optimistic update thing, where we want to create something new, but the server doesn't know about it yet, but we still need to reference it. So entities is like a low-level implementation of just handling that specific part. So all the talking to the server and all that stuff, you have to implement as normal. But let me show you how this works. So let's look at the signal called new fleet opened. And as you can see, I'm bringing in a factory here. I just call it add, and I call it add entity. So what happens when I open, like when I want to create a new fleet, I change the current page and I change the active menu and active item in the sidebar. And then I add a new entity. And I do that by simply uh, creating it, an object. So what happens is that inside my state store on the fleets or the entities.fleets namespace, it will add this object with a new client-side UUID. Okay, and then this action will output that UUID. And what I do is that I copy it over to the current fleet of my application. So the question now is, okay, so I have created a new fleet and I have put a reference to that fleet inside my state store. So how do I get that into my component? And the thing is that when you think about it, like in a database, like Cerebral is more a backend than a front end. So everything inside your state store should be using references, just like in a database. So it's first when you want to show it in the UI that you need to um, like map these references. So this entities module also exposes a factory for computed state. And I put that in common here. So what I do is I expose or export a computed factory, which is my own. So I create a fleet and I pass in, actually this is a UUID path really. Let's do that instead. So I pass in the path to that UUID, and then it will use the compute from entities. So this compute factory takes a pointer to, okay, what kind of entity am I going to use here? And I point to entities fleets. This could be entities users, as you see here, or vessels. And then I give it the path to the actual UUID. And actually, I can also pass it mappings. So I want users inside this fleet to be users up here, which is also computed properties. And vessels should be these. So the users are a list of UUIDs or IDs, and vessels are, of course, a list of vessel UUIDs or IDs. So you can interchange using a UUID and an ID. So this is handled by the entities module. So it knows how to map these to each other. So it checks if is there a user on this UU or this probably UUID, and it grabs it. If not, it checks it on the ID. And this is the thing that this has to be handled automatically. Okay, so the point is we have this mapping. So if we take a look at components and fleet, we can see that on this decorator, when I want to grab a fleet, I just point to my computed fleet and give it the UUID. And that's all. Then I will get the fleet and it will map that fleet with users and vessels and just everything. So everything just works. Yes. So handling this kind of relationships is really problematic. It's very, very hard to get right. But I think that with the separation of concern, which Cerebral states so clearly, that you have your application, which works more like a database and a backend than like UI stuff, then it's easier to reason about this because you want to reference everything by either an ID or UUID. And then when you want to present that data, that is when you bring it together. So that was a short introduction to that. I will write up some more documentation on this as I'm testing it on an application now. But yeah, hopefully this made some sense.